the little cottage by the forest. At the edge of a great forest stood a small, yellow cottage with a sloping wooden roof. The owner of this cottage was an old man named Mr. Thomas. He had lived there for as long as anyone could remember, enjoying the peace and quiet of nature. The forest, with its towering trees and winding paths, was his closest friend. Every morning, Mr. Thomas would sip his tea on the porch and listen to the birds chirping happily. Though he lived alone, Mr. Thomas wasn't lonely. He had frequent visitors from the nearby village, but his favorite visitor was a girl named Lily, who came every Saturday with fresh bread her mother baked. Lily was full of energy and always curious about the world, especially the forest. Each time she visited, she would sit by Mr. Thomas and listen as he told her stories of the woods. "They say," Mr. Thomas began one afternoon, "that deep inside the forest, beyond the big oak tree, lies a secret glade." "A secret glade?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "Yes," Mr. Thomas said, smiling at her curiosity. "It's a magical place. The trees there glow under the moonlight, and the animals speak in whispers. Some even believe that if you listen closely, you can hear the wind tell old stories." Lily was enchanted by these tales and dreamed of visiting this hidden glade one day. Mr. Thomas warned her that the forest could be dangerous, especially for those unfamiliar with its many paths. But Lily's adventurous spirit made her want to explore it. One autumn day, when the trees had turned shades of orange and red, Lily made up her mind to find the magical glade. She packed a small bag with some bread, a scarf to keep warm, and a little lantern. "I'm going to visit Mr. Thomas," she called to her mother as she left the house. The path to the cottage was familiar, lined with wild flowers that swayed gently in the breeze. When Lily arrived, she found Mr. Thomas sitting outside with his blanket wrapped around him. "Ah, Lily, you're early today," he said. Lily hesitated for a moment, then said, "Mr. Thomas, I want to find the hidden glade. Will you come with me?" Mr. Thomas chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling. "Ah, I knew that day would come. I would love to join you, but my legs aren't what they used to be. I can't walk far anymore, but I'll give you some advice." Lily leaned in, eager to hear. "The forest can be tricky. Always follow the sound of the birds. They know their way home. And remember, never lose sight of the sun. If it starts to set, head back immediately." Lily nodded, promising to be careful. With that, she set off into the forest, excitement bubbling inside her. The tall trees loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the ground, but Lily wasn't afraid. She had been in the forest before, though never this deep. As she walked, the birds chirped above, leading her further into the heart of the woods. The leaves crunched beneath her feet, and the air smelled of pine and earth. She felt like she was on the brink of discovering something extraordinary. Hours passed, and the trees grew taller and closer together. The light that once filtered through the leaves began to dim. Lily realized she had wandered deep into the forest, much deeper than she had intended. She stopped, glancing around, but there was no sign of the magical glade. Suddenly, the forest felt different. The birds had grown quiet, and the sunlight was fading behind thick clouds. Panic began to bubble up inside her. She looked around, trying to remember the way back, but the trees all looked the same. Lily stood still, trying to calm herself. She remembered Mr. Thomas's words, "Follow the birds," but the birds weren't singing. Then she recalled something else he had said, "The wind tells stories." She closed her eyes and listened. For a few moments, there was only silence. But then, faintly, she heard it, the soft whisper of the wind weaving through the trees. It sounded gentle, almost like it was calling her. Lily opened her eyes and turned toward the sound. Slowly, she followed the wind's whisper step by step. The forest, which had seemed so intimidating moments ago, now felt like it was guiding her. After a while, she noticed a faint glow ahead, soft and silvery, like moonlight shining through the trees. Lily's heart leaped with hope as she hurried toward the light. And then she found it. There, hidden deep in the forest, was the magical glade. The trees surrounding it were tall and graceful, their leaves shimmering with a faint glow. The air felt warm, even though it was the middle of autumn. In the center of the glade stood a small pond, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting the trees and the sky. Everything felt peaceful, as if time itself had slowed down. Lily stood there in awe, taking in the beauty of the place she had heard so much about. It felt like a dream. She sat by the pond for a long time, listening to the soft rustle of the leaves and the quiet murmur of the wind. It was more magical than she had ever imagined. But as the sky began to darken, Lily knew it was time to leave. She didn't want to be caught in the forest after nightfall. She took one last look at the glowing trees and turned to head back. Just as Mr. Thomas had said, the birds began to sing again, guiding her toward the familiar path. When she finally reached the edge of the forest, the little yellow cottage came into view. Mr. Thomas was waiting for her on the porch, a knowing smile on his face. "Did you find it?" he asked. Lily smiled back, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I did. It was just like you said, beautiful and magical." Mr. Thomas nodded. The forest holds many secrets, but its real magic isn't always in what we see. It's in listening to the world around us and letting it guide us when we feel lost. From that day on, Lily understood the true wonder of the forest. She continued to visit Mr. Thomas, sharing stories of her adventures, but she never forgot the lesson she learned. Sometimes, when you're unsure of your path, all you need to do is listen, and the world will show you the way.